All righty, we're back here in the content studio, live at RSAC at the Delinea booth, and I'm extremely excited to have Guru from Optro, formerly known as Audit Board, join us. He's the GM of AI governance, and Optro, been a long-time partner of FastPath, now part of Delinea over the years, and we thought it'd be great to talk about this topic of AI governance. We're walking the show floor. There's AI in every booth, AI on steroids, but now let's talk about governance. So your background going back, I think, what, 25 plus years? Governance background. My background going back even longer than that. Got some gray hairs, corporate audit, governance, internal controls. The need for strong governance applies to whatever technologies we have. So we're just going to talk a little bit about AI governance and how it's evolved and some forward-thinking stuff as well. Before we get started, though, Guru, just tell the folks a little bit about your background and how you end up being here, and then we'll dive into some topics of interest.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. Yeah. My name is Guru Sethupathy, and I've been in the AI space for over 25 years. Spent time in academia, and spent time at McKinsey and Capital One leading AI, and that's when I started getting into governance. Because if you're doing governance, especially at large companies in regulated spaces, financial services being among them, you got to have serious risk management practices around your AI. And now we're seeing with the fast adoption of AI, the speed, the complexity of AI systems, governance is important in whatever sector you're in. And so that's why I started a company, startup, AI governance startup called FairNow, that got acquired by Optro, and here I am.
There we go. I worked at FastPath. We got acquired about 2 years ago from Delinea. So
exactly.
So we talk about velocity. 25 years in AI is a long time. There's a lot of people in the show floor that would say AI has not been around 25 years.
Right.
I would say yes, it has. Haven't you watched War Games and 2001: A Space Odyssey? That stuff's coming to fruition now.
Yeah.
But in reality, it's the velocity. Because especially with Agentic AI, these agents moving, working 24/7, 365 days a year. So that's paramount to why you need to have strong governance. But also because this is a newer technology, a lot of folks are struggling to get their hands around it, and where to start. Now, what's your thoughts about how you need to put an AI governance program in place, but maybe crawl, walk, run? I mean, you hear about AI governance maturity models. I sometimes think a maturity model scares people off because they look at the top tiers to say, we'll never get there. I would argue, eat an elephant one bite at a time, honor me, risk-based approach. But before you're trying to find technical solutions to all this stuff,
how do you get started?
How do you get started?
I want to hit on a couple of different things you mentioned there, Frank. First of all, AI has been around a long time, but machine learning models, that's AI, that's been around for decades. But what's changing over the last couple of years is the evolution of the technology and the speed at which things are progressing. So you came out with the large language models, generative AI, a couple of years ago, and now we're moving on to agents. And the tricky thing with agents is the surface area of risk is significantly higher. So when you think about agents now, not only do you have to test for new things like hallucinations, we never had to test for hallucinations before, but now when you think about data security and security of these systems, before you had to worry about a data breach. Look, a data breach is bad, but it's nothing compared to what could happen with an agentic breach. Let me give you an example. Agents, the way they work is they perform tasks for you. And the way they do that is they access your systems of record. They go into your data systems and other systems of record, and they read and they write and they perform tasks. Imagine a third party now can expose a vulnerability, get it to your agents, and they can override, they can overwrite your systems, they can delete your systems, they can actually even engineer your LLM, your agents to perform different activities. So that level of risk is unprecedented. And so that's why governance, I think that's why a lot of people are struggling. Because one, this AI technology is new. Second, the governance that's required looks very different than previous versions of governance. You need continuous monitoring. Right? So that's I think what's scaring people off right now. In terms of getting started, right? I get it. I would say the first thing you want to do is really develop your posture. What are I call it the 3 Ps of governance. What are your policies? When you think about AI, where do you feel comfortable using AI? Where do you not feel comfortable? What are the guardrails? What are the boundaries? Et cetera, et cetera. What are the frameworks that you care about? ISO, NIST, EU AI, so on and so forth. So really developing your posture around that. The second is, how are you going to execute those policies? How are you going to enforce them? That's your processes. So that could be your monitoring processes. That could be your approvals and workflows and risk assessments. All of that, your documentation, all of that kind of stuff. And then it's your people. You gotta have humans over the loop.
Yeah.
Can I give you an analogy that I think will resonate with folks? Think about your car, your vehicle. In your vehicle, there's all these layers of governance that are monitoring your seatbelts, your gas tank or your battery charge, your blind spots, your lane posture, all of that stuff, and they're constantly monitoring. And they'll tell you if your tires are flat. Similarly, you're going to have a layer of governance that is monitoring your AI systems, that's then going to be able to relay to, and then figure out, does that kind of conflict with your policies? Does that conflict with your controls? And if so, Frank, here's something going on. This agent is accessing this file, and it's not supposed to. You should do something about it. So that's the future of where AI is headed, but let's start with the policies, starting to develop your processes, and defining the people, the roles and responsibilities involved.
And it's funny you should break it down that way. The auditor in me often talks about the compliance equation. People plus process plus technology.
There you go.
Very similar. Very similar. And ironically, from a Delinea perspective, when we look at our identity security control plane, it starts with visibility. If we're talking about all identities, including these AI agents, the agentic agents, you've got to identify where they're at first. And then you've got to identify what they have access to do, what are they doing, do some risk scoring, some risk evaluation. That's your posture.
Exactly.
And then we talk about continuous monitoring, the VPC for us. And okay, just because you fix it once doesn't mean it's solved. And going back to 35 plus years in IT, anytime you hear executives say, well, once you get out of the security project, we move on, right? No.
That has to change.
That has to change.
We were talking about this before we came on, where there's some fundamentals that are the same, right? The people, process, and all that's the same. But some of the other things have changed. And one of the big differences is continuous monitoring. If you do a biannual audit of AI systems, there's just no way. Because these systems are operating constantly in real time, when you're asleep, when you're awake, whatever that is. And so you need to have the ability to use technology to monitor these things in real time and enforce the policies.
I sat through a Microsoft presentation on Sunday, and they were talking about Agentic AI, the intent versus the context. And if you've seen agents starting to change its intent, to your point, can we shut it off quickly? To your point, and it might be an agent that's been compromised. Checking in on it every quarter, once a month, whatever.
So much damage could happen in the
Exactly. The old days, the detective controls, we felt pretty comfortable with that. And who has access to your system? We're going to check user access reviews or signature duties once a quarter, once a month, when the auditors say. No can do. Because 24/7, 365, these agents are out there. So we have to rope that in. That continuous controls monitoring is critical. And to your point, we have to think about not just what they're supposed to be doing, but what else they could do. I get really scared from a governance perspective. We might do everything right in Frank Inc. AI governance, we inventory all the stuff we're talking about. But then my little team of agents, sort of like Clone Wars and Star Wars, starts talking to someone else's little team of agents
100%.
outside my four walls, if you will. What's their governance? And then that second party start talking to another third party clone of agents. I've started to call it the Agentic AI, the security supply chain. And what do you do? You're trusting that your business partners now have the right AI governance in place for these agents that are critical for your business.
I love that term. That's one I use myself. I call it the AI supply chain. And look, when you're deploying AI solutions, it doesn't matter. You still got to govern that entire supply chain. How are you managing that, right? That's an additional level of complexity. One of the things I say is, I know we talk about continuous monitoring, and you're going to have AI monitoring AI. But here's the thing. The human role is going to be even more important. And here's why. I believe in the future, you're going to have, every organization is going to have dozens, if not hundreds, of AI systems and agents in their organization. And so the work of the company, Frank, and the work of the people in that company is actually going to be guiding, training, monitoring, overseeing, reviewing, being accountable for these agents. And so that is where the world is headed. And so I don't want people to think, oh, the AI is going to govern AI, there's no role for no, human judgment, human values, human oversight, human accountability is going to be even more paramount.
Oh, I love that. I mean, there a lot of folks like to talk about human in the loop with autonomous decisions. This is much more broader than human in the loop.
That's right.
And I think Satya Nadella, maybe last year, maybe 2 years ago, talked about everyone's going to have at least 20 agents working with them on the personal side.
Exactly.
Forget about on the business side all the applications you use. So no, you're spot on there. And there's all this negative press about AI. It's going to replace your job. We don't know how to control it. To your point, there's going to be a role for humans. And again, from a governance perspective, there needs to be a role for humans too, right?
100%.
If we don't have the humans involved in some governance, we can't let the AI govern itself.
I mean, think about this. I'll give again another. I think the car analogy works in so many dimensions. Think about one of the challenges. We have self-driving cars now that actually operate more safely and better than humans. The biggest holdup is around accountability. If there's an accident, who's accountable? Is it the engineer who wrote the software? Is it the company? Is it some manufacturing component? Who do I? And that's what's scaring people. And so there is a huge role for humans in this governance process. And we're going to see how all that unfolds. But I think one of the things I encourage people to do in this era of AI is to really invest in their skill set, both in terms of how they use AI, but to understand the governance, the risks, and how this technology goes awry, because that skill will be very valuable going forward.
No, absolutely. And obviously you have to have tools and solutions to help with that.
Of course. 100%. 100%.
So last thing I want to get to here before we wrap up, regulations. And we know there's some stuff coming out of the EU. Eventually, we're here in the United States in San Francisco. My perspective, U.S. is always a little behind Europe. But there's some stuff coming out.
Where's it going?
Where's it going? I know, like at Optro, we talked about the compliance frameworks already. You have great place to store all those and map to control-wise. But where do you think we're at from a governance perspective related to regulations around AI?
Yeah, look, we follow this closely because Optro, our AI governance solution, sits at that orchestration layer. We help streamline the overall orchestration of your governance and help automate a lot of those components. And one of those pieces is the regulatory intelligence that we provide. And we do that by following and tracking the laws, the regulations, and breaking them down into controls and harmonizing. And here's what we're noticing. One, I would say the initial impetus for governance started around the regulatory risks. So you had a bunch of like New York City local law, Colorado, Illinois, California passing these laws in the U.S. A lot of state-by-state actions. And then you had the European AI Act, which was a huge deal. And now it's going into effect, probably later this year is the plan. But I will say a lot of the governance concerns that we're seeing from customers has shifted from regulatory risks, Frank, to business risks. And because they're actually starting to see how powerful this technology is and where it could blow up the company. We've seen some recent examples with Meta, with a rogue agent, with McKinsey, having vulnerabilities around the agents and having to implicate the impacts of that. Those are business. Those aren't illegal things. Those are business things. And so when I think about business risks, there's three dimensions. One is, are these things working as intended? Are they biased? Are they hallucinating? Are they reliable? The second is data security and data privacy and security. Not only the data, but actually these systems can be, vulnerabilities can be harnessed to actually change how they work. And they can, like I mentioned before, edit your systems. And the last piece is transparency. Do we know how they work? These dimensions are all new. And that's what's scaring companies even more than the regulations. And so we're tracking the regulations, but I just wanted to respond by saying the business risks are also keeping people up at night.
I love that. I mean, in the old days, my background, GRC, financial systems, it was always heavily slanted. Well, one audit board started a SOX hub before Optro. It was slanted towards publicly traded companies.
Because of the regulations.
But now, when it comes to cyber and identity security,
it's not just about regulations.
No, it is a real business. It doesn't matter. Industries, you said, public, private, does not matter. And from a big picture perspective,
and that's what we're seeing. That's what we're seeing. We initially went after companies in regulated sectors, and now we're seeing every company out there caring about this.
And data is paramount at Delinea. We talked about our identity security control plan and who's authorized to do what. But ultimately, it's because what data can they get to? And now these agents are all part of that equation as well. And what can they get to? And then how can they be compromised? And it's crazy time, my friend. Crazy
Things
time.
are moving so fast, Frank.
They are. So, I wanted to thank you for joining us today for a short chat. We could talk all day, but I know you've been around a lot of booths today as of I'm talking. So, we'll call it a day there. But I want to thank Optro. For those of you who don't know, Optro is old audit boards now Optro for being a great partner of FastPath over the years, and now being a partner of Delinea the last couple since we've been a partner at Delinea, and it's been a great partnership. We're looking forward to do more stuff together with you folks.
Well, first of all, nice meeting you. Our first time interacting. I hope to have more conversations.
Absolutely.
Enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. All right.